get started. We're going to start talking about this good, bad, funny life. Hi, future me. Sorry to interrupt the video, but I wanted to make a quick comment and offer a trigger warning. In this video, my mom, Thea, and I talk about our personal decisions around having children or not. And I know the point's not lost on me that this is a subject that has seen a lot of political and religious discourse. And you might even catch some of that in some of our commentary. But I think more importantly, I want to offer a trigger warning. In the process of sharing her own story, my Thea becomes very vulnerable and shares a story of loss. And first, I want to just thank her. I have deep appreciation for her willingness to share that publicly and so openly. And I do know that it's a loss that is painful, long-lasting. So for those of you who have gone through something like that, maybe you're going through it or know someone close to you who has gone through it, please feel free not to watch this video if it's still painful. If you choose to watch it, my wish is that you hear the hope from my aunt. Though it was a tough, long journey, and it took a lot of personal reflection and seeking support, she's gotten to the other side. And my wish is that you can also get to the other side. Now, this video does not substitute professional help, counseling, therapy, any of that. So if you feel like you need that and could benefit from that, please seek it out. There are lots of options out there. If you choose to stay and watch the video, please enjoy. Today we're going to talk about the decision to have children or not. And so
Very interesting.
we'll talk about how we've seen this decision change over time. I have some stats. Unfortunately, they're all in America. I didn't find stats in Latin America, but we'll in our conversation, we'll see if there's some similarities, because the decisions to have children have changed over time. And I was just sharing something with mom yesterday that I came across an article where some couple that does TikToks, I think, a lot of their stuff was based on being a couple that doesn't have kids and now they're pregnant. And they said, I guess we're no longer part of that club of couples without kids. And a lot of the responses were very polarized. There were people who were like, congratulations, and other people who were like, why did you give in to the pressure to have kids? So I think this discussion is a lively one for some people, because I think some people feel very strongly about having children, and others are more, flexible to each their own in terms of that decision. So we'll get into that and talk about our own experiences. But first, I'll start with some of the facts, some of the stats that have come out around the decision to have children. And this is from Pew Research, and it compares the 1970s to 2021. I think they have a more current study. And in that study, it showed that people who are a couple aged 50 and younger, there's an increase in them not having children. So there's definitely a trend upward of not having children. But in 1970, 67% of couples who were married had children. In 2021, 37% were married with children. So there was a huge decrease. In 1970, none of these couples were cohabiting with children. By 2021, 5% were cohabiting with children. So living together, but not having children. In 1970, 18% were married with no children. 21% were married with no children. So, some differences. And some of the factors that they think have contributed to this are that people are getting married later in life. More women are having children on their own without being married or coupled. There have also been some differences by education. People with bachelor's level or higher tend to have higher rates of marriage and lower rates of having children. So those were some of the things that I found. And as we talk, we'll see what your experiences were, especially you, Aunt Lauda, in Latin America, if you saw those same patterns. But I want to start with both of you. What were the expectations for you when you were a young adult around having children? And we can start with mom.
Sure. Well, I was a young adult in the early middle 1960s. So pretty much the expectations, were to eventually get married and have children, what they called to form a family. I was attending a Catholic school, and even more so in those days, um, there was even a class for homemaking, and they would give you books. So pretty much that was the general expectation, to get married and have children. Although, yeah, was welcome if you wanted to have a career, but that was, a lot less girls doing that.
And what were the thoughts around not being married and having children, especially a single mom?
Hmm.
What were the thoughts?
Well, the thoughts, in Mexico, in the Latin culture, um, it wasn't it wasn't seen very well that you would not be married and have children. Even some homes would not accept that, and were really not nice or accepting to a single mom. Fortunately, that has changed. But in our culture, in those, days, 50s, 60s, was very strict that way.
Okay, okay. And then how about you, Aunt Lauda? Around the time that you were a young adult, what was the thinking behind it?
Well, usually my friends and I, once you finish university or bachelor degree, if you were having a relationship with, a boyfriend, a formal relationship, it was expected once you finish that school to get married and have kids. So mostly all my friends, I would say not all, but mostly, did have a relationship with a boyfriend already. So right after they finished school, they got married and they were expecting a baby right away, actually. So, and talking about the people that didn't get married, of course, like your mama said, it didn't look really good that you didn't have a boyfriend, and to get married in the future.
Mhm.
Actually, there is a saying in Mexico that they say, quedona, or how did you say, Anna, that when they were not married,
You
they
were left quedada.
Mm.
quedada, quedada. Yeah, it's like you are quedada. We share an aunt, a mama's sister, the oldest, that she didn't get married, but she was a wonderful lady, and very cultural and all these things. She did study and work for a long time, but she was quedada, right? So I remember when we got together, right, in the family, it's like, oh, here you come, your auntie quedada. It was really bad. It was really mean. I do have a close friend of mine that she's never got married, and she suffered a lot when we were young. When we were on the teenagers, kind of getting with a formal boyfriend, or expecting to get married sooner or
Hmm.
someday. Yeah.
Yeah, that term reminds me of like old maid, someone who is alone and I think to each their own that wants to stay that way, right? Um, I think which says a lot, I think, about societal pressures and how that influences and impacts us as we make our own independent decisions. I think for me, in my time, so like more like late 90s-ish. I think there wasn't a sense, well, within the family, there wasn't a sense that you have to get married and have kids. I think in terms of society and the general um, thinking behind it was more about an individual choice to have a child or not have a child. In fact, I remember there was a movie called Singles in the 90s, early 90s, and it was about like that process of dating and being single. I think it was in Seattle. But I think there was a general sense of pessimism around family building too. that influenced a lot of that. And I think there were still strong feelings about someone who decides to have a child on their own, whether intentional or not, still pretty negative. But I think for the most part, it was left to me to make that decision if I wanted to or not. I don't think there were any, I didn't feel any pressures one way or the other. And I think it was the same amongst my peers. I don't think there was. Now, I don't know because, I also surrounded myself once I got to college age around a lot of really career focused people. And so I think the majority of the people I was close to, the thinking was focus on career first, and really just explore your own life as a young adult, not having to commit too early on to getting married or having kids or anything like that. So that was my sense of things. You both hinted a little bit at what your peers and friends felt around having children. But do you want to talk more specifically on any friends that you had that were close to you and they're thinking around the time that you're at a phase in your life where you're getting ready to either have a family or think about building out a family? Do you want to start, Mom? What were your friends thinking around
Sure.
that?
Well, I had some that decided to have a career and even not get married, concentrate to some were teachers. Um, the general idea was again to get married and have children, but there were many that decided, and even though the family in those days, I don't know why it concentrated in what people would think, what society would think, the things you had to do, certain regulations, and norms, if you will. But I had a few that either married later on and didn't have children or pursued a career, even though it was not the general accepted thing, if you will.
Mm-hmm. And when you saw the friends choosing career first, was that something that you were okay with? Was that something you admired or had any feeling one way or the other about them doing something different from at the time what was sort of expected?
Well, I really admired because it wasn't the expected thing. But yeah, I rather admire that because if you choose to have a career and even not get married or get married and not have children, I thought really it was up to the person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how about you, Aunt Lauda?
Well, to me, mostly, I would say most of my friends did go through a career. However, parents kind of push them to get married or to have a boyfriend, right? To be expecting what are you going to do in life if you don't have a boyfriend, right? It's supposed to be that way. Anyhow, like I remember myself, when I went
I
to
like how Mom is not interested. She's more intrigued
yes.
by the door. Did you get a good
Sorry,
delivery?
it was, you won't believe it, but it's my neighbor with some cookies. And I said, where are these?
She's like, it's not as important what Aunt Lauda has to say. Just
I'm
kidding.
Yeah, well,
Go.
sorry.
let's pass that one. Let's continue.
Hey,
Sorry.
that's life. Um,
That's
eh,
life.
no, go
They
ahead.
pay attention sometimes, they don't care sometimes. So you just follow by the flow.
Just go
Anyhow,
with the
but yeah,
flow.
I was gonna say that my mom was very supportive in that time. She never said you have to get married. It's
Mm,
like when I had my formal boyfriend, she's like, "What else you want to do? Do you want to travel? You want to do something else, or are you really sure 100% you want to get married with
hmm
this guy, right, and be alive? Why? Because they expected you to last forever, right? There was no such a divorce at that time."
hmm
So that was another choice. But my friends usually they really fit. Like I have a friend that went to study English in the States, and her mother was just like, "Look for a man over there." Really, and at the end, she ended up getting married, a man over there,
Mm.
and of course have 4 children right away when she was 18 years old, and now she's divorced. So again, it was really a push time,
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
the, like your mama said, for social people.
Yeah. Well, I like what you said because I know in other conversations we've said that grandma was a little more modern for her time and a little bit, I think, broke away from some of those societal pressures, right? To give you all the space
Exactly.
to think for yourselves and what do you want to do, which is a great environment to be in. Not everyone got that. I think for me, and I know I already mentioned this again, most of my peers, I think we're really driven, focused first on career, and then the other was secondary. And some of them have gone on to get married and have kids, but I don't think it was at the forefront for them. And and I think we all kind of thought alike, like it's up to the individual to figure out what's important to them now, right? Um, not to say I mean, I really admire parents, caretakers, because it's a lot to juggle. And I think a big thing for me was that it would be too difficult for me to manage both, manage getting through school, developing, establishing a career, and juggling kids. And I just felt like I didn't want to neglect one or the other in that process. So I think that was some of my thinking and probably some of my friends thinking too, right? There's too much energy is required to get going and launching into a career. So we'll just dedicate that time. But you all at some point decided to have kids. And I know for each of you, you had a little bit of a tough time with your first child. And so I don't know if you would like to share a little bit about your experiences with your first child. Maybe mom, you go first.
Oh, sure. Well, I was working still in the American embassy before moving to the States. I married a Marine, and we were supposed to come to Camp Pendleton. But in the meantime, I was visiting my mom when, I don't know, because I was working and taking the bus every day or an other circumstance. He was born premature, my first baby, a boy, almost 8 months old. So instead of coming to the States, with the hope of having him born in the States. He was born in Mexico. And in a way, that was good for me because I had my mother and I had family, at least for the first couple of months. I stayed in Mexico and I had to stop working and so on. But once we came to the States in Camp Pendleton in California, I was pretty much on my own. And yes, no matter what you read about having babies, your first one, you're on your own and you have to try the best you can in, moving here for the first time and so on. Your first child is always, some mommy say, is that's when you gain experience. The poor sweetie first child. But I was happy, and was good, and got used to living here pretty soon. And he was a good baby. He didn't have any trouble, and then got healthy.
Yeah, I was going to ask with him being premature, wasn't he so small that grandma had to make clothes for him or someone
He,
had to make clothes for
he
him?
did, she did, was really small. And
Ugh.
I think I still have some because he could never believe it. Once he grew older, he grew
I
up.
couldn't believe it now. Just kidding. Just kidding.
And he played soccer. He loves soccer, so he played soccer all his schooling. But that's right. The beginning, he was small.
So I imagine that could have been scary too. I mean, not only are you a new parent, but you have someone who is tiny because they're premature and need special clothes and things. So I'm sure. And then the transition to the US and being alone for a lot of that time because I assume dad was on tour and wasn't
All
around
the time. Oh
for that.
yes. Uh-huh.
So during that time, I'm just curious, what support did you have uh, in that first year?
Well, pretty much on my own, because even though I don't remember exactly, I think we didn't live at the base at the time. We had to rent an apartment for a little while. And I think I had a nice older lady neighbor, but pretty much on my own.
Mm.
Mama would come and visit. She did for for like a month or two, and that of course would help a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. I could imagine any help would have been appreciated because it sounds, that's tough in the first year anyways, but with a child who's smaller and probably more delicate, that's a lot. Yeah. How about you, Aunt Laude?
Sure. I was married then, and yeah, I got pregnant after a long time, being married. I wasn't really living the perfect married life at that time, but suddenly I got married. I got pregnant, and unfortunately, he was premature too. I was working at the airport, and my life, the job was very stressed, and going back and forth and doing things at the airport, moving around. So yes, unfortunately, I didn't take care of myself enough, and the baby came early, 28 weeks of the pregnancy, so it was very delivered very early at that stage. Unfortunately, I was living then in a small place, so we have to fly him and myself to the big city, which is Guadalajara, to take care of him because in that place they didn't have the correct equipment, right, for premature. Of course, his lungs were not well developed, so he took 6 days, and after 6 days, he stopped breathing. And yes, it was pretty hard, very very hard, especially when you go to
Postpartum.
postpartum. Do you know that your hormones start changing? And to me was harder, I would say, because I didn't have a baby, right? So you become sad and you almost crying every day, and you can go to the depression as well. In my case, it took me a time. It took me a while to get, to recover for that. But nowadays, I feel good. I really thank God that I had the opportunity to have another child and not regretted, how that feeling is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was 30 years ago, 35 years ago. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a long time, but yeah,
That's
it's just
I appreciate you sharing that because I know for a lot of people who go through that process, it's a very difficult, and difficult's probably not even the word, but that's probably the best word I can come up with of that kind of loss because you went through the pregnancy, a good portion of the pregnancy before all of that, and under the circumstances, not having the right equipment, imagines if you had the right equipment, would have a different outcome. And I'm sure a part of your process was a lot of what ifs, right? Like, what if this, then maybe this,
exactly. Oh yeah.
and and that's something that stays with you even over time. And like you said, it was wonderful to have the blessing of another child later, and we'll talk about that in a second. But um, I think it's very helpful for others who have gone through that to hear people's experience of that because it is a really challenging time right after and getting through it. But there can be light on the other side of that, I'm wondering during that period where it was harder, what helped you get through that period?
Well, my people, my mother, my family, all of you were very supportive. I took my company, where I worked, they gave me time off. So it took me maybe 2 months off. And yeah, you have to, I really regret that I didn't have professional advice, follow on this one, because again, back then it wasn't too common to do that. But my family, my mother support me a lot. My friends were there for me. Uh, Honestly, yeah, it helped me especially when I speak up, because at first you don't know if you want to cry or what's going on, and you're missing something really big, and what happened, right? It was my fault. Then you start saying, it was my fault. But at the end, of course not. And you start getting that support that you need. You speak up your when it hurts inside, your feelings, what you're going through, and that helped me a lot. I was lucky actually to have that people around.
Yeah, yeah, support makes all the difference.
Yes.
especially in the absence of professional help if the postpartum depression or subsequent depression gets really intense. So I'm glad that you had that around you. So having had that experience, what was it like when you had your next child?
Oh, wow. I was the happiest person in the world, right? When I become pregnant, I was like, "Oh my God, I can't have more children." Because then you have these doubts, right? And
Mhm.
it took maybe, 5 years or 3 or 4 years, I don't know, but apart from each other. So I wasn't really sure that I could been able to be a mother again. So I was really happy. I felt complete. I think I spoiled him at the beginning a lot because it was very important for me. I really over react on him and care about him and nurture him, pamper him all the time. But then, you start becoming a mother and then you have to go back to the reality, to the real life. And that's when you realize you have to do things differently. But yeah, I was so, so happy.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that because, once you have children, and we've covering the firsts is a piece of that because as a new parent, you don't necessarily have a manual for how to take care of your children, right? And some of that you learn over time, whether you have one or four or five children, right? So I want to talk about what your parenting styles are and and then if you think your child developed, as they say, the child will develop with a certain style. So I'm going to describe the style first, and then you're going to tell me which one you think you were. Okay?
Okay.
So the first, which is the more ideal style, is called authoritative. So, authoritative style, it's a combination of warmth and flexibility while still making it clear the parents are in charge. So, children of authoritative parents know what's expected of them. The parents explain the reasons for rules and consequences for breaking them. And parents also listen to their children's opinions, but they ultimately stay the decision maker. So, that's authoritative. Then there's authoritarian. So, authoritarian parenting uses strict rules, high standards, and punishment to regulate the child's behavior. These parents have high expectations and are not flexible with them. The children might not even know a rule is in place until they're punished for breaking it. That's authoritarian. Then there's permissive parents. So, permissive parents pride themselves on being their child's best friend. They're warm and nurturing and open with communication. They're actively involved in their children's emotional well being. They have low expectations and use discipline sparingly. So, they don't discipline very much. Permissive parents let the children make their own choices, but also bail them out if their choices don't go so well. That's that. Then neglectful is the last style. So neglectful parents fulfill the child's basic needs, but then pay little attention to the child. These parents tend to offer minimal nurturing and have few expectations or limitations. It's not always a conscious choice that the parents make, but it can be forced by circumstance, such as they need to work late, um, or it's an issue of single parenting. So that's neglectful. So I'm going to start with mom. What style do you think you were?
Wow. Well, I'm not sure, but I imagine in a way I was permissive and sometimes, well, it sounds a little bit like neglectful. Unfortunately, I was living in a difficult marriage, and I think I concentrated on trying to keep the family together
Mm.
and at the cost of precious time with my daughter, my wonderful daughter, and my two sons. Um, Sometimes when I think about it now, that life is a little bit more quiet. And with old age and whatnot, I regret some things because I don't know if it was because of the idea of keeping a family no matter what, because of the education and the tradition I grew up with. or simply because I was trying to work it out, um, concentrating too much, like I said, in wasting time like that. I don't think I was authoritarian and maybe a bit authoritative, but I think more because of the situation, more like would be permissive or neglectful, I think.
And I think uh, probably makes sense because that's the other thing, right? When you're part of a pair, you each may have different styles too. Like I would definitely say dad was more authoritarian, very strict rules where you didn't even know what the rules were until you broke a rule. Um, and then your style probably changed over time because after divorce and being a single parent, demands were higher for you to take care of the home and whatnot. So it may have felt like there might have been that piece of it. Um, but let's assume that you're closer to permissive, because I don't think neglectful as much. I think you veer towards authoritative and permissive potentially, right? With permissive style, children have the freedom to make their own decisions, like what they want to eat when they go to bed. They tend to have good self-esteem and social skills, but they can also be impulsive, demanding, and lack the ability to self-regulate. Does that sound like your kids? Any of your kids?
A little bit, probably. Yeah.
I'll definitely say the
Impulsive.
self-regulate for me. I can't self-regulate. I also blow up at times. So,
That's in
something
the
goes,
gene, baby.
it's in the gene.
It's in the genes.
Uh, but all in all, like, it's balanced. Like there is the piece of self-esteem and I think there's the influence of both styles over the course of time. And also independently what your children develop, the own resilience that your children develop over time too. So let me turn to Aunt Lauda. What style do you think you had?
Well, you know what? I really love the first one. Authoritative,
Authoritative? Uh-huh.
authoritative. And actually, I believe I did apply to that, style
Mm-hmm.
mostly all the time
Mm-hmm.
because I really read a lot of books. I know I was able to spoil my first kid, like I said before, but however, I was very strict on the rules. And I was away mostly all the time. I worked for 8 hours, and so the poor guy was with a babysitter
Mm-hmm.
or going to school, and then the babysitter would pick him up and all these things. So when I got home, I had to be a little strong, and yeah, and set the rules in a way. However, I might combine in a certain time, especially when I moved to the big city and
Mm-hmm.
I took the other position, being in charge. My schedule was terrible. I had to show up early morning. I mean, in the actually early morning, 2 in the morning, I would say that I had to show up to work. So unfortunately, he was 6, 7 years old. And when I got home, I really wanted to see him, and some of the rules I probably broke. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, but yeah, I think I like the first one very much, and I probably combine the others later on.
Yeah.
Uh, because when I read how the child is, it doesn't make sense many things.
Well, let's see. An authoritative child or a child who went through that style of parenting, they grow up confident, responsible, and capable of managing their emotions. They're also friendly and achievement oriented.
He's capable to probably manage his emotions because very quiet person, but he's very introvert.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't like social life at all,
Mm-hmm.
and he picks really in the first hand his friends. He doesn't have many friends, so yeah. Again, I don't know what happened there, but he is very hard. He's hard. He's very, how would I say, very sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
He is very sensitive, but and very patient. He doesn't explode. When he explodes, it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
But again, he's very introvert. He's
Mm-hmm.
he's not social a lot at all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he has a lot of those traits, the positive traits that come from the authoritative style. And then, there's a mix of That's why there's this concept that you can blame your parents only so long because you do still have your own unique personality, your own sort of genetic makeup that makes you resilient in situations and your own ability to make choices. So at some point, you have to take that responsibility for your own decisions. But we're almost out of time. So the last question that I'll answer it is whether or not I regret not having kids, because at this point I probably won't have kids. And I don't. I think I have a fulfilling life as is. I'm glad that I've had the career that I've had and that I have the family I have and people around me. Like I said, I really respect people who become parents. It's a big responsibility, and and they shape future generations. So I think there's great value to that, and I do think it's a personal choice, right? Because if you don't want to be a parent and then you become a parent, I don't know what comes of that. So those are my final thoughts on that piece. But it was another good conversation, and I know we sped through a lot of things, so I don't know if there's things that people resonated with that sounded like their experience. For sure share that in the comments. If you felt there was something that we should have talked more about, put that in the comments. Maybe we can do a future video about that. If you liked it, hit the like button and subscribe because we'll have a lot more coming in future videos. Before we go, we'll just introduce ourselves. I'm Joanna, my tia,
Laura,
my mom,
Ana,
and we have to remind them whether it's good, bad, or funny. Live
leave
it
it
up!
up.